Okay, so in our first class last Sunday, Susan and I presented an overview of the spiritual power of old time music and its roots in early Southern Americans' unique and diverse cultural blend of white, Native American, and African American peoples and their music. So, after an overview of this history from 1619 to the early rock and roll period, we talked about old time American music's redemptive power and to offer hope and healing to our souls, our communities, and to our planet. So many have experienced this music as a spiritual practice, and so will we. As will happen today, we will tell our stories, listen to some good music, and enjoy talking to a very well known guest musician from our larger community here in the Triangle, who will be introduced in a moment, and also some folks from Binkley Church. Bob Winstead's going to be one of those who will be on our last meeting, as with some others. So, all of these people have experienced the music's healing power and have loved sharing it with other folks. So today we're going to feature one of our own internationally acclaimed musicians, Joe Newberry, who lives here in the Triangle area. Raleigh, I think, Joe.
Yes, sir.
And Susan is going to introduce Joe in just a few minutes. But I've got a question for you. I got two questions for you, Susan, that we didn't get to last week. And we're going to take about 10 minutes right now. And I'm going to ask her this question. Susan is an accomplished and joyful musician in her own right. But I'm curious, Susan, what were the early experiences that you had that really drew you to this music that has consumed your life, if you will, in many ways?
Thank you, Charles. I'm going to take about 30 seconds. I was
Oh,
born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and my older sister taught me how to play the guitar, and she got me involved in singing and playing at hootenannies and protest marches and stuff growing up and during the civil rights era of the 60s with Martin Luther King and the Ebenezer Baptist Church in in Atlanta. So I was thrown into what was for me, a terribly exciting and important feeling for what this old time music, these hymns, could do um, to bring people together. So as I went on, I just found I loved from the very beginning the sound of harmonies, the sound of the banjo, the sound of the fiddle, the sound of the songs, and being able to sing together with my sister and with anybody else I got a chance to.
okay. So let me ask you this then. I think all of us, as we move through life, we start out as kids and then we start, growing up. And then there are certain sort of forks in the road, as Yogi Berra would say, and we take one. And
Yeah.
so, but those forks in the road really matter. So, in brief, did you ever have one of those forks in the road that mattered in terms of your musical?
I've had several forks, and as my mother used to say, you eat with the fork from the outside in. But what I did, I think the biggest one, even though Joe Newberry had asked me and others to sing on 9/11, the day after 9/11, for memorial of the people who died in the tower and what had happened, that was a turning point, but the biggest one was after my divorce. I couldn't listen to music at all. I couldn't play it. I couldn't sing it for a number of years, and I fell into a deep depression. I came out of the depression realizing I had to change my life. I went to seminary in New York City and joined the gospel choir, and that changed my life. Singing with people for every uh, I have a stutter, by the way, but I don't when I sing. For every chance we got at the worship services and elsewhere, So that was a huge turning point in my life. And I saw that this music, this old time music, reached straight to the soul, and it also reached out to the world. And I saw it as a ministry. And heard when I heard uh, Bruce Springsteen, people like John Baptiste talk about music as a spiritual practice or a ministry, I knew I had arrived, that I'd been affirmed. So this is why I wanted to do this class.
Okay, well, Susan, why don't you, and really thank you for sharing that. That was very personal, and I appreciate you doing that. And let's move on, and you introduce Joe, and let's get started. Okay.
Oh, that'd be great. I want to introduce Joe, my longtime friend, who has told me and I've heard him say this. He was born in a small town in Missouri, but he got here, as he said at first, to Chapel Hill when his car broke down. He got here as soon as he could. Lived in Bynum for a while, worked in Chapel Hill, now lives in Raleigh. And I was worried that I couldn't remember, or worried about my own memory and where Joe was, and his wife Susan. And we welcomed Joe here because Joe has traveled all the way around the world with his music as a solo performer, as a group performer. And I would just like to, so we can get straight to Joe as we can. I would like to introduce Joe by saying what Garrison Keillor said about Joe. When Joe, who appeared on the A Prairie Home Companion several times, Keillor says he's a better musician than a lot of legends were, if you want to know the truth. And meanwhile, he carries on with a good heart, carrying old music into the future. Keillor has hosted countless string band greats for nearly 40 years on his popular radio show. He recently invited Joe to make his 7th appearance on June 14th. Newberry will also join Keillor and a roster of distinguished performers for Prairie Home Companion's upcoming 40th anniversary celebration. Joe is an award-winning fiddler, songwriter, banjo player, mandolin, and probably kazoo even. And so I would like, I love Joe. Joe is a person, as Keillor says, with a good heart, and he has brought his heart, and through his heart and his soul, to his music, to anybody who will listen. And I know he's been heard and loved all around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Newberry. I'm gonna let you take it from here, Joe.
My goodness, that's one of the kindest introductions ever. Garrison was kind to me. I was on the Prairie Home Companion a lot in the last 5 years of the show, and then that 40th anniversary was in 2014, and we had a wonderful time gathering in St. Paul. Prairie Home was one of those things that we were talking about, a watershed in one's life. I've had a few. One was, and Susan also referenced my car breaking down. I came to North Carolina to visit a friend, and my car broke down. It was one of the things that Garrison loved asking me about, and he would say, "Oh, you came to North Carolina and your car broke down. Oh, well, that's not true." It's like, that's true. So I got a job to pay for to repair the car, but by the time I had enough money to fix the car, I was in my early 20s. Life can turn on a dime then, and I discovered not only a nice place to live, but a wonderful community. And I think that's one of the things that we have in this area so strongly is a sense of community. And I worked for the Chapel Hill newspaper for a long time, and so Binkley Baptist Church was always shining for us. And our publisher Orville Campbell was a long time supporter of Binkley, and so I'm so tickled that you would have me come and talk to you today and play a little bit. We'll take questions. We can do it where if you want to do this and raise your hand that way, Charles can put you on as we're going. We can save it for the end. Susan, what would you like to do? Or Charles, what would you like to do that way?
What do you think, Charles? You're muted, babe.
Okay. I know you have some questions of Joe, so why don't you ask those questions and you all talk and Joe sings along, and then let's hold our questions maybe for the last 15, the rest of us for the last 15 minutes, because we have some flexibility, Joe, at the end of the program. We don't have to end exactly at 9:30, so people could stay on longer. So yeah, let's move along with those questions.
That sounds like a plan, and a Newberry loves a plan. So let's do that.
Okay.
All right.
Right. Well, I covered most of what I have to say because I want to hear Joe. And Joe, I think one of the best things you've ever said, among the many things that you've said, is that old time music is about ordinary people telling extraordinary stories. And we're all here ordinary people. The African Americans and Native Americans that contributed mightily to this Southern old time music were ordinary people. They were not the ruling class. They were not the kings and queens and princes. They were the working class and the wilderness seekers. So if you would be so kind to do, I hope, what you love to do best, which is to tell a story and sing a song.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to make a special request.
I will do it.
I have several special requests, and other people can put them in the chat too, but Singing As We Rise, of course.
All right.
And the song you wrote, which I have not heard, about the speech that Martin Luther King gave the night before he went to Memphis, or he went and was assassinated the next day. So those two at least, and as many as you can get in. Okay, thank you.
I will. Let me go ahead and do that. The author Stephen King was asked one time, "Why do you choose to write what you write?" And he said, "What makes you think I have a choice?" I'm the same way with writing songs. I'll write songs driving in the car just because I want to write a song. I thought about Dr. King on April 3rd, 1968, and that speech that foreshadowed so much. And he said, "I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you." And that line always stuck with me. Go climb the highest mountain. I may not get there with you. Go climb the highest mountain. I may not get there with you. Go climb the highest mountain. I may not get there with you, but I will join you when I can. Go swim the deepest ocean. I may not get there with you. Go swim the deepest ocean. I may not get there with you. Go swim the deepest ocean. I may not get there with you, but I will join you when I can. When I can. When I can. I will join you when I can. Go across the harshest desert. I may not get there with you. Go across the harshest desert. I may not get there with you. Go across the harshest desert. I may not get there with you, but I will join you when I can. Go for the widest river. I may not get there with you. Go across the widest river. I may not get there with you. Go for the widest river. I may not get there with you, but I will join you when I can.
Mighty fine.
Oh, thank you very much.
If we clapped, everybody would thank you, honey.
Well, it gets, using that structure of a simple thought. Mostly that's all my thoughts are simple thoughts, but a simple thought sung as a repeat. The Carter family would do that. We used to call them father, mother, brother songs. But I love the notion of crossing these obstacles. You know, the old song, you don't have to move that mountain, Lord, just show me the way around it. And so I get a little, when I sing and play, these are not just words. And so I'm always glad that the audience doesn't have like little reaction cards that they can fill out.
Performer seems to not be able to control his emotions.
No,
but the thing is that if you don't feel it, don't sing it. And that's something I've believed my whole life. So if you don't feel it, don't sing it. So, and I do feel it. So, Susan, what would you like me to talk a little bit about my family and the power of this music in my family?
Yes, I would. I'd like you to start there.
All right.
Tell me more.
I come from a singing family in the Ozarks, and we would sing play party songs. My grandfather and grandmother, they loved to sing the old ballads, the ballads that came from the British Isles, came to North Carolina. Then my family moved from North Carolina in the 1830s and moved to Arkansas and up into Missouri. And so we loved to sing, and it's my best memories. It's my family singing. It is a wall of time, this music, and it connects me with my family and my past. And my family, Susan and I were talking. We did a little pre-interview this week, and Susan and I were talking about the fact that my family does a version of the ballad Barbary Allen that I've never heard anywhere else. And I've spent my life looking for other people who sing that version. And it could be that is just my family version. Well, it uses some old English. They buried them both in the old churchyard in graves both long and narrow.
Right.
And out of his grave grew a milk white rose, and out of hers a briar. They clumb, and the rose wrapped round the briar. And I took pains when I was young to learn that version. And my youngest daughter, Virginia, learned it when she was about 9, and she said, "So Dad."
Yeah.
"So Dad." "Yeah, honey." when they bury them in the old churchyard, the graves are long and narrow. Is that right, Dad? Yes, honey. And when the rose and the briar, they rop. Is that it, Dad? Yes, honey. And I was like, yes, honey.
It is.
Because it hit me so hard that she understood that wall of time. She understood that these things are important, and it's important to carry on. You know, my grandfather was a Baptist minister, and his first church was in the oil fields in Oklahoma, in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. And his first church actually was the saloon. They would 1 hour per week they would close the saloon at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. And grandfather would preach with the owner of the saloon looking at his watch like this, and grandfather would preach, and when that clock struck noon, the owner would say, "Time," and grandfather, wherever he was, would say, "Amen." So that's I come from a preaching family.
Oh my
God. And
A dedicated
my late sister was also a pastor. She came to the ministry late, and Amy and I did a lot of churching together, her preaching and me playing, and I figured out I have the gift but not the call, and I've never felt called to be a pastor, but I do feel called to play music, because music can reach in. It can reach into people's hearts and souls, and that's what I'm all about.
Susan Libby, can I ask Joe something here? I know this is not necessarily a song of that ilk, but you mentioned Barbara Allen, and I wonder if that's a song that you feel in your current place right now that you could actually sing for us and play for us. Is that
sure? I'm happy to.
I know it's a little bit of a side angle to the main show, but I think we have time here.
I'm happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that right now, or would you like to tell?
I'll do it. I'll do it right now.
Oh, babe, thank you.
Right.
All right. 'Twas in the merry month of May, when green buds all were swelling, sweet William on his deathbed lay, for the love of Barbary Allen. He sent his servant to the town, to the place where she was dwelling, saying, "You must come to my master dear, if your name be Barbary Allen." Slowly, slowly she drew up, and slowly she drew nigh him, and the only words to him did say, "Young man, you're surely dying." He said, "It's true, I'm a poor sick man, and death is in my dwelling, but none the better will I ever be, if I don't get Barbary Allen." She said, "It's true, you're a poor sick man, and death is in your dwelling, but none the better will you ever be, for you won't have Barbary Allen." He turned his poor face to the wall, and bursted out a-crying, cruel maid, you're the death of me. I'm dying, Barbary Allen." She had not gone but a mile from town, when she heard the death bell tolling, and every time to her did say, "Hard-hearted Barbary Allen." Mother, mother, make my bed. Make it long and narrow. Sweet William died for me today. I'll die for him tomorrow. And Father, Father, dig my grave. Dig it both long and narrow. Sweet William died for the love of me. I'll die for him in sorrow. Sweet William died on a Friday night, and Barbary died on Saturday. Her mother died for the love of them both. She died on Easter Sunday. They buried them all in the old churchyard, in graves both long and narrow. And out of his grew a milk-white rose, and out of hers a briar. They clumb and they clumb, and they clumb and they clumb, till they couldn't climb no higher. And there they rocked in a true love knot, and the rose rocked round the briar.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Joe.
The verse that I keep looking for, and I don't know, Sweet William died on a Friday night, and Barbary died on Saturday. Her mother died for the love of them both. She died on Easter Sunday. I've never heard
That's
that
a
anywhere
new
else.
one to me. And the song dates back to the 16th century, I hear.
It's one of the earliest child ballads
Is it?
collected in the British Isles.
Right.
Uh,
And you've heard that verse in your Missouri only.
yes.
Isn't that something? Well, preserve it. And like your daughter, Virginia, the way you sing it, the way you preserve it is reverential. And
It's it's one of those things that you don't go jam out on a ballad. Hey, let's jam. Let's do some improvisation.
grinning.
Yeah. Well, I when I left day work, I was one of those musicians who always played, and I played at festivals and at venues all around the world, but I always kept a day job. Well, in I don't know, maybe 2015, I was doing a solo show with Garrison. He was playing at DPAC,
Right.
and he asked me to come sing a few songs with him. Well, afterward, we were getting a bite to eat, and he said, "Do you want to play this music all the time, full time?" And I said, "I think I do." And he said a very Garrison-like thing to say. He said, "You should do it now. You've got a great future behind you." And that resonated with me so much. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And that was another watershed point in my life. And then out of the blue, a year later, I got an email from Donald Shaw, who is the director of the Celtic Connections Festival in Glasgow, Scotland.
Ooh.
And he asked me if I would come be one of the singers on the Transatlantic Sessions
Well, that's
on a tour of the UK. I could not turn it down. I didn't want to turn it down. And so that's when I left day work. I had lots of support at home. I booked a lot of work. It's funny, how your Facebook memories will pop up,
Right.
on this day. Well, yesterday, on January 22nd, 2016, my Facebook post that popped up was snow report. Sound familiar? Snow report. I have just left my full-time job and canceled my first show as a full-time musician.
Making
Now
soup.
you arrived.
The last part was making soup and regrouping. And that's the story of my life right there. It's like all we can do is regroup.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. One foot in front of the other then after that. Oh.
Well, I was lucky that I was able to play music lots of places, but when it was time for me to go play, I had not been a full-time musician since I was in my early 20s when I lived in Arkansas. And I couldn't turn it down. I didn't want to turn it down. And so
absolutely.
but one of the things when I play these days is that what comes across the threshold, it's not always music. A couple of years ago, I went and did the keynote speech at a conference called From Okra to Opry about Southern foodways and Southern music.
Oh yeah. Now see,
And
they go together like this.
One of the things that they asked me about was in the question and answer is, what's a ballad? You know, we were talking about Barbara Allen. What's a ballad? And it's basically, it's just a story set to music. Mm-hmm. You know, think of the Psalms. Psalms make great ballads because it's just stories set to music. Oh. So they said, well, can you demonstrate a ballad? And I thought, well, I'll never miss a chance to be, you know, kind of playful. And so I said, here's an old song. See if it's an old song. See if you can figure out where it's from. Mm-hmm. Sit back, you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip. Started from a seafaring port, aboard one tiny ship. Aboard one tiny ship. The mate was a mighty sailor man, the captain brave and sure. The passenger set sail that day on a 3-hour tour.
Oh!
A 3-hour tour.
You're not.
The weather started getting rough.
This is
Tiny ship was tossed. Not for the courage of the crew, the men would be lost.
this is serious.
It works. It works as a ballad. It sure does. Yeah, I've sung that. I've sung that for folks where I've gotten all the way in until I come to Gilligan before they figure it out. It's like, oh, dang it.
Oh no, Gilligan's Island theme song.
The Ballad of Gilligan's Island. That's right.
It is serious. Well, Joe, please tell us about a little bit more about the transatlantic sessions. I wanted to get in that is like winning the Nobel Prize for literature. This is the Nobel Prize for for musicians.
See, the difference is that Nobel Prize comes because of singular talent. Mine, the transatlantic sessions, I was just lucky, really and truly. There's so many great folks, but I was able to play banjo and sing and tour the UK with some of the best musicians in the entire world from the United States and also from the UK. And that's what it's a collaborative venture. It's the strongest collaborations I've ever been part of. Everybody sings on if you take a notion to sing on somebody's song, there are no barriers. We did it in 2016. The singers, it was me and Rhiannon Giddens and John Doyle. Karen Matheson, great Scottish singer. It was just the highest level of folks, and it made me want to do the same. Then we did the transatlantic sessions at Merlefest in 2017.
Oh, I did not know that.
It was wonderful, and the singers, it was me and Karen Matheson, Maura O'Connell, who used to sing with the Bannon, Sarah Jarosz,
From
and
Garrison.
James Taylor. So
Man.
good old Chapel Hill boy, and it was the same deal with James as everybody else. If we took a notion to sing with him, we sang with him, and I never dreamed that I would play Copperline on the clawhammer banjo.
Right, and I bet it sounded great.
I took my 4 notes and applied them as well as I could.
That's right.
I think Bob Winstead gets that.
Oh, yeah. We've got a banjo player in our midst.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, will you sing another song for us?
I sure will. Would you like Singing as We Rise?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. You pull a song down out of the air sometimes.
And I will tell them about this song won the best IBMA Country Bluegrass Music Award
Gospel.
for best recording of gospel. And in 2015, and Joe Newberry wrote this song. It has a great story behind
Well,
it.
I started thinking about all of my relatives in heaven, and I was working in England at the world's most aptly named music camp, which is called Sore Fingers,
Oh, yes.
and they work you like a mule there. But by about Wednesday, you're playing so much. You teach 6 hours a day, and then you do jam sessions, and you do workshops, and you do concerts at night. And so by midweek, you can't help but sort of play with a fluidity just because you're playing a lot. And I've learned to never ignore when a song comes to me. I was walking to breakfast on a Wednesday morning of the camp, and a friend of mine said, "Did you hear those larks this morning? They were singing as they rose." And I went like, and I started thinking, up on the mountain, mother is singing, laughing and shouting. Her sweet voice is ringing. So by the end of the day, in between classes, I had worked out a song. And it won that award, the gospel recorded performance. The Gibson Brothers, a fine bluegrass band, recorded it. But maybe even more meaningful for me is that the pastor of what was my home church, when I was a little boy, I lived in Malden, Missouri, down in the boot heel of Missouri. I moved from that church when I was 14 and moved to Columbia. But I got an email out of the blue from the pastor of Malden First Presbyterian. And he didn't know I went there. He just found me and liked that song on the Gibson Brothers album. And so I get this email, "Dear Mr. Newberry, I'm the preacher in a little country church in a little town in Missouri that you've never heard of. And I would like to do your song Singing as We Rise in my church, Malden First Presbyterian." And I wrote him back and I said, "Well, Pastor, if you look in that third pew on the left, that's where everyone in this song sat." And so that meant the world to me.
That makes me cry.
So this is Singing as We Rise. If you're all muted, if you go ahead and make sure all of you are muted, you can sing on the chorus with me. It changes from mother, father, and sister. Every word in it really is true. And you can either sing, "Singing as we rise, singing as we rise, singing as we rise," or you can just sing with me, "Singing as we rise." But we'll go ahead and I'll do it for you. Up on the mountain, mother is singing, laughing and shouting, her sweet voice is ringing. Pay no mind to dark and stormy skies. Mother is singing, singing as we rise, singing as we rise, singing as we rise, headed to the pinnacle, singing as we rise. Up on the mountain my father is singing. Up on the mountain, Father is working his obligations, he's never shirking. Pay no mind to dark and stormy skies. My Father is working, working as we rise, working as we rise, working as we rise. Headed to the pinnacle, working as we rise. Up on the mountain, my sister is preaching a wonderful message, it's powerful teaching. Pay no mind to dark and stormy skies. My sister is preaching, preaching as we rise, preaching as we rise, preaching as we rise, headed to the pinnacle, preaching as we rise. Up on the mountain my mother is singing, laughing and shouting, her sweet voice is ringing. Pay no mind to dark and stormy skies. My mother is singing, singing as we rise, singing as we rise, singing as we rise. Headed to the pinnacle, singing as we rise. We are headed to the pinnacle, singing as we rise. Well, there you go. One of the things about music, you know, that I love is that when a song of mine strikes a chord with somebody, pardon the pun,
So to speak.
so to speak, I get messages from folks from lots of places, and I got a message from some folks who had heard me sing that song out in California, in Paradise, California.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, I sang that song, and a few days later, we came back to the East Coast, but a few days later, the Paradise Fire started, and those folks lost their home. And I got an email from them, Jim and his wife, Jan, and Jim said, that song, I think about your singing as we rise. And I wondered if you might write a verse about the fact that we're going to rebuild. And so, up on the mountain, we are rebuilding, new gardens planted, we're busy tilling, pay no mind to dark and stormy skies, we are rebuilding paradise.
Oh, nice.
And so, you know, that's when I shuffle off this coil, when I mingle with those twinkling stars, if I can have had that kind of effect on somebody through music, it's been a life well lived.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Sir. And you have.
Yeah.
It is a ministry. You said that you didn't have the calling. You do have the calling.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a minister of music.
You know, it's funny. My I come from a long line of agitative agitators. Anyway, my grandfather, the one who preached his first sermons in the saloon,
Yeah.
grandfather preached at little country churches his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1928, he was named the pastor of a large church in Springfield, Missouri. I mean, like a big congregation, hundreds of people. And sometime during the fall of 1928, his supervisor, his superior, came to him and said, Reverend Newberry, I need you to tell the congregation to vote against Al Smith. And grandfather said, well, I can just hear, no, why would I do that? And his supervisor said, well, because he's Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather said, well, I can't do that. And his supervisor said, and why's that? And grandfather said, because this is America. So, we're a long way away from 1928, and it's just last week.
Right. We're not so far.
We're not so far. So,
No, we need your grandfather. We need you.
my dad remembered his the last sermon that my grandfather ever preached. The grandfather wasn't driving anymore, and my dad drove him, and Dad remembered that sermon as just an amazing wrap up to a life of service and ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Susan, I wonder if I could ask you one more question. Okay.
Oh.
And that is, I want to give our group a chance to ask you some questions directly.
Sure.
But I know, Susan, one of the songs that we talked about, and I know you wanted to hear him sing, was Resurrection Day. And
Yes, I do. I do.
maybe you can sing us out on that, and we'll open it up, and we'll open the mics after that. And people who want to ask Joe questions directly or make requests,
All right.
we're really paying him a lot of money for today. I'm telling you.
It just overwhelmed me when I heard about it.
Thank you for asking for Resurrection Day. It's I mentioned my sister was a pastor. She passed away in 2007, and so pretty much most of the songs I was writing for a long time were about her. But it was also about, I lost my mom when I was a young man, and so I would. When a lady who would have been about my mother's age would pay me any mind at all, or just be, I would just like swoon. It's just like, oh, that's like a mom. Oh, that's like a mom. And so one of those gals, she was the mother of a friend of mine, and she got sick. And I got a message from her, and it was weird. She lived in Asheville, and she said, honey, next time you're in Asheville, just come by and see me. And I thought, well, that's odd. And so I made sure that I went sooner than later, and I'm glad I did. And I got there, and you could tell she had been ill, but she was all dolled up. She had, makeup on, and she had a bright bandana around her head, and she patted the couch. She said, sit down here. And she said, honey, I'm sick, and I want you to write me a song. And that's all she said, and that's all I needed to hear. And so I did. And I wrote this for Patsy Warner of Asheville, North Carolina. You laid down your burden when you left this world of woe. I will think with affection of your time with us below, your time with us below. On your journey, your Your soul learns how to fly when you walk that lonesome valley into a cloudless sky. Memory lingers, though the body turns to clay. That's so we will recognize you on the resurrection day. On the resurrection day. On your journey, your soul learned how to fly when you walk that lonesome valley into a cloudless sky. Home to live with the Father. Hallelujah, what you've gained, free from any care or bother, and free from earthly pain. Free from earthly pain. On your journey, your soul learned how to fly when you walk that lonesome valley into a cloudless sky. I'm glad I'm a believer, for I know how the story ends. I'll deny the great deceiver and join my family and my friends. I'll join my family and my friends. On your journey, your soul learn how to fly when you walk that lonesome valley into a cloudless sky.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
That
you.
was beautiful.
Thank you.
And
All right. Ask me anything. I'll make something up.
This is the Q&A session. Yeah, that's true. You know, like Mark Twain said, you know, that even Huckleberry Finn was true mostly. So that's all you're responsible for.
Well, I want to make myself the person that my dog thinks I am.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed. There's a hand up here from Podge, the Mando Man, who is John Hall from Nacogdoches, Texas.
Yes, Joe.
Hey, John.
Thank you so much for what you've shared with us today.
Well, I'm glad to be
have,
here.
I have two questions.
Yes, sir.
One that's a bit selfish because it's about East Texas, and it was my understanding that you were at one time were planning to be attending a Margaret Wright's festival in Palestine, Texas this year.
I'm supposed to be there in March.
Yes, sir.
Great. Well, that'll be great. I hope that it all happens. And
she has sent out. Margaret has sent out word that we're going to give it a try. I mean, that's the thing. If the last 2 years has taught us anything, it's that it's sort of like dealing with the Soviets: trust but verify.
Indeed.
And so we'll you know, I'm hoping it works because those are great folks.
well, I hope it does too, and I'll get to meet you in person then. So that'll be great.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that.
Yeah, we'll play some tunes. One other question.
Yes, sir.
If possible, I love to buy recorded music directly from the artist. Do you have CDs or anything available that can be purchased from you directly?
It's unbelievable. It's like you were a gift to me. Yes, I do. Any musician will tell you at any time of year that yes, the holidays are just around the corner. Imagine the joy having a child's face on Christmas morning. So you can go. I just put up a new website, and you can go to joenewberry.biz, and there's a contact form there on it, and you can send me your email address, and I'll get you hooked up with whatever you need.
Great. Well, that's fine, and of course I'm in communication with Susan. So if I forget your website, we'll get it together somehow. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
I'll put it in the chat as well.
All right.
Okay.
Roy, I think you were trying to get in there for a little bit. If your question's still there, here's another recording artist right here. His CDs are available. Okay.
Because the holidays are just around
the corner.
I'll say that on
single
December
CD.
26th. So
And then there's always.
I just want to
Day.
thank you very much for doing this.
Go ahead, Roy. Say that again.
Is my mic working? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, just thanks very much for doing this. I've totally enjoyed seeing you again
Good
after
to
all
see
this
you.
pandemic time.
Yeah.
And also, I do have a question.
yes, sir.
It seems that most of the songs you write sound like they're 150 years old. Is that something
There's
you
my
do on purpose?
wheelhouse.
Does it just happen, or do the songs exist in the universe and you're just the first person that noticed them?
I think sometimes it's like I take dictation. I can write a modern sounding song, and I have, and I do. But the ones that really resonate with me are the ones that feel like things are swirling around me and whispering in my ear. I wrote a song called "Baby I'm Blue," and it's because my folks loved all sorts of music, including my mother's two favorite artists were Lawrence Welk and the Mills Brothers.
Yes.
And so I wrote a song. The Mills Brothers, if they were around, they might have recorded "Baby I'm Blue." And I was standing in line at the post office, waiting to buy stamps for my Christmas cards, and the whole first line of a song dropped down into my head, which was, "Before you, blue was a color so splendid. I slept the night through, and blue was just something the wind did." And so I actually when something like that happens, I don't ignore it, and I don't delay. And so I turned over one of the envelopes and wrote it down on the back. So somebody did not get a Christmas card that year. Roy, if it was you, I'm sorry, but I needed to write it down.
I wonder if we could hear that song played.
Yes, it's one of
I'll do a little bit of it. I know our time is.
I always ask Joe to play this one for me. It's beautiful. Y'all be prepared to cry.
Oh. Before you, blue was a color so splendid. I slept the night through. Blue was just something the wind did. I lost you. That's something I never intended to do. Baby, I'm blue. Before you, blew through my life like a trade wind. Blue was the mark of a true friend. When I lost you, I learned how much I depended. I depended on you. Baby, I'm blue. Before you, blew out a spark that was kindred. Who knew that kind of love could have ended? My heart has a tear that'll never be mended, at least not by you. Baby, I'm blue. Before you, blue was a colors so splendid. I slept the night through. Blue was just something the wind did. I lost you, and that's something I never intended. For I depended on you. Baby, I'm blue. Oh, it's sad, but it's true. I'm lost without you. Baby, I'm blue.
Thank you, Mr. Joe.
Yes, ma'am. Well, anybody have one last question or two before we ring off, or we could all go. I know that services start at 11. We could all go pour some more coffee and
Well, and get ready for church.
get ready
You're not
for
going to
church.
miss
That's
church,
right.
are you? We've got Reverend Forbes, James Forbes, speaking today. He's from Goldsboro, North Carolina, and for a long time was the minister at Riverside Church in New York City when I
Wow.
was there, and also at other times when Martin Luther King spoke there in the 60s. The
A
Reverend,
powerful message.
well, he did. He
Yeah.
did.
Meredith had her hand up, I saw.
Yes, thank you. I've so enjoyed hearing your music.
Thank you, ma'am.
I've been so touched by it. I had a question that popped up in my head. I wonder if you've ever felt yourself led to write a hymn that would be for congregational singing and worship.
I have written in a bunch of different genres, never a straight hymn, although one of my songs on this Christmas Day is used in Christmas services a lot. And I wrote it after or at a holiday show I was doing in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the phrase "snow falls round the manger and love melts it away" came to my mind, and so I basically wrote the song between sound check and the performance that night, and I sent my sister. I knew that my sister would be up working on her sermon because the girl never did anything without wet hair. She always went to school with wet hair. She always did everything sort of the last minute. And so I sent her an email and I said, "Sister, I have written a Christmas song," and I pronounced it, I wrote it sort of grandly. And I don't know whether she thought it was going to be about candy canes and gumdrops or what. And I could almost feel the disdain in the email back. She's like, "Send me the lyrics." And it's like, so I sent her the lyrics and she emailed back again right away. And she said, "Oh, you mentioned God and everything." And so that song has been used a lot in Christmas services, and that's the best. That's the best. I'll take that over any awards, anything like that. Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
Could you give us a taste of it?
I'll just the first verse and chorus.
Thank you so much.
This has been sung with the North Carolina Symphony and Joe.
Yes. Snow falls round the manger, love melts it away. Greet the host of angels on this Christmas day. When the lambs start speaking as they kneel down to pray, you'll find the peace you're seeking on this Christmas day. Alleluia, sings the choir. Alleluia, come what may. Alleluia, every hour of Christmas Day. Alleluia, every hour of Christmas Day.
Right.
Beautiful. That's
Yeah.
Susan, we have a couple more questions, and we probably need to say to everybody, we understand if you need to go get your second cup of coffee, and it's been a fabulous day with Joe Newberry. But
Oh,
if you
it
got to
has.
go, you do that. But we'll continue on here for another 4 or 5 minutes if that's
All right.
okay, because we got a couple of questions out there.
All right.
I think Jan.
I think some hands have been raised. Jan. Yeah.
Oh, hi, this is Jim, Jan's husband.
Hey,
And
Jim.
hi, Susan. Susan and Charles, I appreciate your putting this series together so much. And Joe, thank you for being today's guest and sharing so much of your music and life. I was just going to ask an open-ended question about the relationship between preaching and storytelling as it's manifested in music. But that may be.
But other than that,
Better to play another song rather than answer that question, because I think the answer's in the music.
Susan was right. I do feel some calling playing music, and really the best preaching for me, it is telling the story, and it's drawing people in. It's drawing people in to share that and have folks make it part of their life and experience. All that to say, I love telling a story, and I when I play music, I love telling an old story a new way. So maybe that's what pastors do, is they tell an old story a new way, and it resonates with folks.
telling the story of unseen things above.
That's right.
And that's a perfect way to describe the music that you do, Joe.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you know Jim as a saxophone player extraordinaire? He's a musician and a pianist and a composer.
It's one of my favorite instruments. I'll tell you what, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well,
we have. Do we have one more question?
There was another question.
John.
Is it? Well, who do you see, Charles? That
John. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Joe.
Yes, sir.
Earlier in what you've been sharing, you talked about when you sang Barbary Allen about a ballad, a song that tells a story. I just wanted to share with you and with everybody else that one of my closest musical friends, Steve Hartz, thinks that your non-traditional ballad of Missouri Borderlands is one of the finest composed folk songs he's ever heard.
Oh, high praise, high praise. You know, it's funny. The band Mandolin Orange, which now goes by the Watch House Band, they did. They recorded it, recorded a video of it, and it's got millions of hits on YouTube. And I sort of thought, well, I don't want to do a cover version of my own song, so I put it in ballad form, and it works good that way too. Tell your friend thank you, because that means a lot.
Let me do this, Joe.
Yes,
if you will accommodate this, I'll have the closing introduction in the next week's story program, and maybe after that, if you don't mind singing us out on that would be fabulous.
Sure.
Okay. So let me close it out and say, first of all, Joe, thank you very much. Everybody appreciate what you did here today, and we appreciate your generosity of words and music, and we applaud your gift to so many people. But anyway, next week we're going to focus on the profound but relatively unknown influence that Native Americans have had on old time music. We're going to feature Native American Marsha Harris. She's been on a program before. She plays the flute and the dulcimer tunes that she learned from her Lakota ancestors and from her all-time music friends way down at Morehead City, North Carolina, and from people throughout the country. So it'll be the same link we're using today. We invite you to return. We'll send out information about it, and and just thank everybody for being with us today. All of these Agnes Scott buddies and friends of music all across America. John, even way down there in East Texas, my Lord, and Nacogdoches. Okay, so thank you very much. Joe, we invite you and appreciate your maybe sort of singing us out, and
Sure.
and we'll sign off after that
All right.
with great appreciation.
Well, I always think about my old friend Clyde Johnson from WPAQ in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Whenever he would host anything on his radio show or do MC work, he would say, and I'll say it to all of you if you have to ring off, until we see you again, I'll just say goodbye, good luck, God bless you. Don't worry too awfully much about nothing, because everything won't never be all right, no how. So here's a little bit of here's Missouri Borderland. It's a song about what can happen even with the best of good intentions. I'm far away from home, with neither family nor friends. I never meant to stay so long in the Missouri borderland. 3 years ago I held a job. I saw the world from my pony sway, riding drag on a dusty mob. I knew I'd worked when I drew my pay. But times got hard, Lord, times got mean. And I fell in with desperate men, and one night the worst of them laid out what was an awful plan. I did not like such wicked talk of murder and bold robbery. I told those men that I would walk, but they all aimed their guns at me. Their prisoner I helped rob a bank, and much gold we did attain. They shot a boy just for the sport. I stood and watched his young life wane. Such dreadful sounds I've never heard. His mother's wailing filled the room. She looked at me, she spat these words: "The devil take you to your doom." I turned to face that murderous crew. I shot them dead, I killed all four. And the only thing I rue, I did not think of it before. The posse found me outside the town, as I was kneeling there to pray. From a gallows high I will lay down into a dark Missouri grave. Oh, hide the rope stains around my neck when my mother sees me dead. And please don't let my brothers take the fateful path I chose to tread, for I'm far away from home, with neither family nor friends. I never meant to stay so long in the Missouri borderland, and now I'll spend eternity in the Missouri borderland.
Oh,
Thank you, Joe.
Thank y'all. Be well, be safe out there, and hopefully one of these days we'll be together where I can see you. I can see you not on a screen. But
Right.
until then, take care.
Thank you,
you.
Joe. You're a
Bye
blessing and a benediction.
thank you.
Amen.
Amen.